Well, hello. As I say out there in Houston, Texas, howdy. And meet my Texas wife, Mr. Dog. You coming in, Mr. Dog? Mr. Dog's here at the moment. There's Mr. Dog. You say hello? You say anything? Right. So there, Crouton. Yeah, thanks very much to the famous Crouton Bear on YouTube, and now on Rumble. She's over there on Rumble. Crouton Bear. Crouton and Bear, right? So that's from Crouton Bear. This is what she sent me. They were all over in Houston. And of course, my wife. And I was talking to you on to the Crouton today, and she's very well. I've shown these pictures before, but anybody else has never seen them. I do have friends around the world. Now, we're doing a story tonight on drop bears. So, why do we have drop bears in Australia? Where does it come from? And the Bathurst 1000. That's going to be tonight's stories. Oh, by the way, Crouton, I love that one. It was great. Don't get in front of the herd because you have to look back and see where they are. I still remember that. I think that's very pretty. That looks a bit like Sydney's skyline down there, a circular quay. That was the railway line there, a circular quay down there where my finger is. It's got the similar sort of look. But anyway, we're opening up today. We open up to the rest of the world. So you can come over here if you're double vaccinated or you're an Australian citizen, double vaccinated, and you can prove it. No quarantine. Just go home with no quarantine. Yeah. So we're open. Today we're open. So for that reason, we're having a drop bear. You think, what's a drop bear got to do with Australia opening up? Well, a drop bear is originally an Australian idea. Now, I'm born in 1961. So up and around me. Anyway, I was watching iRocket tonight, and you just watch a story on Australian sports, American, whatever, Australian sports. Kathy Freeman won the 2000 Olympic Games, and Ian Thorpe won the 2000 Olympic swimming. That's what that was, not 208, it was 2000. That's when Kathy ran around the home bush around the Olympic Park, and when she opened this opening ceremony, the cauldron, the thing went up and it stopped, and then it went up again. Well, I was there parked out behind the cauldron out on the freeway, and I was watching it from my taxi. If you don't know, used to drive a taxi. So what do we have? Okay, I'm going to say drop bears a second. Okay, born in 61, got my driver's license in 1977. Drove away from Sydney about 1978, had my first Yowie Bigfoot encounter up around a place called, where was it? Putty Road at Howes Valley. But before the bus was there, I went there. Bigfoot case files out there in the USA, and you got to go on their website, and I've got the whole story written down there, and she put it up. She didn't do an actual story on it because being Australian and the pronunciations of things, it's just written so you can read it. There's Mick and I. So anyway, so then from there I travelled up and went to Singleton and drove right up the New England Highway to Tenterfield, where Peter Allen come from, the famous world singer. I call Australia home, Tenterfield, settle home. Right, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, at least on this channel, we show you. So we've got, where's Sydney? Oh, silly camera, where are we? Yeah, thanks, Mr. Dog. I think that's Sydney. Can't see it. Yeah, that's Sydney there. And this is the New England Highway. It's a parallel one to the coast. and that's Tenterfield right up there. That green line there, that's the Queensland border, and there's Tenterfield in there, and it comes out here to Byron Bay. Right, so there's Byron Bay there, Australia's most easterly point. Another bit of history about Byron Bay. It's where the world's only solar powered train is in the world. Not the solar power train in India, no. My mate Tim designed and built it down in Lithgow, and my mate Neil, Neale, Neil, in Byron Bay drives it. There you go. And Mr. Dog, he's been up there and he's seen it, Mr. Dog. And you can hear me pat Mr. Dog. So the outcrewed on, Mr. Dog's back. Look, you want to see? Oh, there's Mrs. Dog, by the way. Look. Here he is. Look at that. So he crewed on. Look, he's going well. All right. Anybody else who likes Mr. Dog? He always comes in when I'm on the YouTube. Okay, Bathurst. I did a live stream there the other night. Now, I rock it over there in Illinois, Chicago. I think he's in Chicago, Illinois. We've got a couple of these as well. I forgot to mention these the other night. These are the local maps. Shows Forbes, orange, and there's, of course, there's Bathurst. Because I'm looking at this backwards, there's Lithgow down here. That's where I go for lunch, my channel. Molong, M-O-L-O-N-G, Molong. A lot of people have never heard of that word. And there's Cowra down the bottom. That's where the Japanese prison camp was in World War II. And it's Wellington, not Wellington, New Zealand. It's Wellington, New South Wales, and Dubbo. Anyway, so if you want one of them, there's a couple of them. I will post them to you in an envelope. Unfortunately, they're going to get a little bit folded, but they're just a local free travel map I got from Bathurst Information Office. And the other one I got is 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And I've got to think about half a dozen of these other ones. Here's actual Bathurst. So if you want to know what the actual size of Bathurst looks like, apart from hearing about the track, that's got the where Bathurst is on it. In regards to Sydney. Another camera's going to show that. Anyway, you can see the word Bathurst there in the middle. And this is a free street map of Bathurst. And on there is, I can't see what I'm doing. On there is Mount Panorama, which is, where is it on the map? It can be on the camera. Put your finger on it. There. That's Mount Panorama right there. Right, so that's the actual racetrack. It's a public street, right? So you can see it. There it is there. There's the straight. Right? So it's right in the heart of it. And that's why when you're on top of Mount Panorama, it looks like there's a gap in the city, because there is. See, that's West Bathurst, and that's City Bathurst, and that's Kelso or East Bathurst. Anyway, so there is half a dozen of them. You want them on Bathurst. And I had a quiz question up there. Tell me the name of the park that the camping ground is at Bathurst. So if you can tell me the name of the park, it's my YouTube video. Pre-Bathurst race. And in that video, and in my other live stream, I put these up. It's a fold up one there at Bathurst. Mount Panorama on it. And then we've got a couple of kookaburra, platypus, and echidna, the spotty anteater. And then we've got Iroka from Chicago, Illinois. We've got one over here of him. And it says, "G'day, mate. G'day, Australian. Emu selfie." Right? So if you know Iroka, give him a comment, tell him to go down and watch Mr. Hominoid. And so I said, Mr. Rocker is a emu. And then we've got emus there. And then I've got 3 of these, which we're just going to give away. I'll pay the postage. I'll just send them over. So there's 3 of them. And the question was, tell me the name of the park. So that was pretty easy. That's the famous Bathurst railway station, which a lot of people think, oh, yeah, it's a railway station. Well, it's where Ben Chifley, our former Prime Minister, started his working days on the railways. He used to drive the steam engines out of Bathurst. And we have, in Sydney, we have Chifley Square. We have Chifley, the suburb, down the south, down in Malabar, Maroubra. And then we have Chifley Drive, up there at Zigzag Railway. You go and look on the map, it says Chifley Drive. It doesn't say Putty Road. Oh, sorry, Old Bellsliner Road. It says Chifley Drive, after Ben Chifley. Couple of Ben Chifley Parks, or Chifley Park. So there you go. He's got a suburb, a square named after him, road named after him. The same as we had the Sturt Highway, which is named after Sturt, the explorer. Same as Blaxland's Ridge Road, Blaxland the town, Blaxland. Burke and Wills went over the Blue Mountains where they had the tree. Anyway, so that's just, it's just me, Mr. Book of Knowledge of Australia. I'm an Australian, and I travelled from when I was 18, and getting back to that, I went up around Mount Panorama at Bathurst. So there's 2 stickers. Is that anyone wants them? I can have them, 2 Bathurst stickers. That's the courthouse. But just says Bathurst. That's all, just Bathurst on it. Anyway, and the first trips I did, I remember a drive up to Bathurst when I was 17, got me P plates, and I went round Bathurst Circuit, and I come down the bottom, the policeman booked me for doing 40 mile per hour and a 36 mile an hour zone. I've got a ticket, a 4 mile an hour over the speed limit, because I ran around Bathurst Circuit. And then from there, I went travelling around Australia, and I travelled from Sydney to Cairns in a big motorhome, and I went down to Melbourne in a motorhome. But before that, and this is getting back to the drop bear, so just stay with it. Where did the drop bear come from? Right, 1978, 1979, I drove up to the Gold Coast, and I saw about 1 or 2 backpackers hitchhiking, 1 or 2, right? Now, 1983 comes along, so it's like 4 years later. This is when the big boom hit Australia for backpackers and tourism from overseas. We weren't really on the map around the world for coming down to Australia to get jobs working in picking fruit and everything else, right? Everything was 1978, 1979 was local Australians would go out and pick the local fruit and veggie markets. Big orange orchards around Richmond Lowlands where the Pansy train used to go, Kurrajong, all up through there, apples, oranges. Down at Young, there's cherries. Up in Stanthorpe in Queensland, there's grapes and veggies and green, all sorts of things, zucchinis or whatever else. Zucchinis up here west of Gosford. Richmond Lowlands had rock melons, watermelons, pumpkins, sweet potatoes, whatever else, all sorts of crops. Now they're all just turf farms because of the floods. Once I built the Warragamba Dam, that was it. So and then the people then decided to move out to the Hawkesbury and turn into a housing area. The whole country started to change. Late 1979, 1980. So 1983 comes along. I leave Sydney working on the railway, so I go up to Tweed Heads. Go up there with Mum one day, and the old Pacific Highway is what they call Tweed Valley Road, which is now from Coolangatta, where they got the roundabout where the border was. They just lifted up the barricade for the coronavirus. Lived up there about, what's it now, 19 hours ago. And you come out of Coolangatta, turn right past the Twin Towns RSL Club, come down, you got Woolworths on your left, and it's called the Pacific Highway. And you come down to the petrol station on your left, and from there on, right down to the fish markets on the Tweed River. So it's about a mile long. It's backpacker after backpacker after backpacker after backpacker after backpacker, backpacker. Sitting in all these huge backpacks. Be two of them together, boyfriend and girlfriend, or two mates, or one guy, or one girl, or three girls, or whatever ratio, right? And they were lined up right down the fish market. I said, Mum, this is crazy. Where are all these people coming from? She said, oh, they're called backpackers. They're coming up here to pick all the fruit and the avocados. And they're coming down from Queensland because the Queensland fruit picking season is changing over, and it's too hot for them. So now, because they're from Europe, they're going down to Sydney where it's supposed to be cooler, but it's not. So they were leaving from Cairns, hitchhiking all the way down from Cairns, Rockhampton, down through Brisbane, right down to Coolangatta. Now, there was no motorway around the back of Tweed Heads like there is there today. That freeway that goes out the back of the Sunshine Coast and over through Benora Point. It's the old Tweed Coast Highway, which is actually Benora Point Road, and then you see the freeway goes right at the top, underneath it, actually. And then out through Chindra. And that's when we used to have the big old steel bridge there at Chindra. Well, when you come out of South Tweed, this is getting back to drop bears, don't get off the channel. I'm not off this subject. There were so many backpackers, they were camping on the side of the road, and they were camping everywhere. I mean, I went down to a little tiny town called Wooyong, and it's not even on the main highway. You got the old Pacific Highway used to come down and go inland to Mooloolaba, and then come down to Pottsville, Mooball, and then Mooball towards Billy Nudgel. Well, it was a back coastal road used to come down this way. It was from Chindra, which is, so you got Coolangatta, Tweed Heads, down to the Tweed fish markets, over the Tweed River. That was then called South Tweed. And then from South Tweed, you go down through that, the old Pacific Highway, down past South Tweed Shopping Centre. And as it went down through Benora Point, around the edge of the bank of the mountain range, that's Pacific Highway, and you could still see it there today. There's a video of a guy catching a shark at Chindra, the big new bridge there. I was on YouTube there, and he turns around just in the corner of the left hand of the picture. You can see the old Benora Point Chindra bridge, and they left part of the bridge sticking out into the water. It used to go out and come across, and they had the centre of the bridge used to go up and down for the old steamboats. And the steamboats used to go up from the ocean through there to Mooloolaba to meet up with the Mooloolaba railway line to take the sugar cane and all the bananas and whatever else up to Brisbane. That's why it had that raising bridge. Is it all sort of making sense? Well, then from Chindra, you come around and you can go follow the highway, which would then go west out to Mooloolaba through the Byron Bar Ranges, and then come back down to Byron Bay through Billy Nudgel. And then it used to go around through Brunswick Heads, then round the back of, there was a turn-off road to go to Mullumbimby, and that's at the famous pie shop. And then it come back out to where it is now, the freeway. So where the highway come down and went like that, they put the freeway straight across the guts of it. So you can come around the east side of it, then you go around the west side of it, and that's a Mullumbimby turn-off. You've got to look at a map to understand it. You can see it. Any Tweed Valley Way is the old Pacific Highway, the original Pacific Highway. It used to be like a snake. It used to waddle. The same as when you drive up there through Taree, Kempsey, Maxville, places like that. They changed the name of it to either Lachlan River Way or some other name, something, the local thing. But it's the original Pacific Highway. Well, I used to drive that. And I come down to Chindra, and they'll be all lined up down the side of Chindra, down the old Pacific Highway, down next to the water, near the Chindra pub. There's a pub at Chindra on the Kingscliff turn-off, and they're sitting there, or they'll be sitting up at the BP at Chindra, which is also the Pinnacle Head turn-off. And they'll be sitting there, there'd be another 60 of them, all sitting there trying to hitchhike. This is 1982, 83. And then you go from there, and then I'd go down home, down to Hastings Point, and we go fishing. And we come down this fishing from Hastings Point, we get into Pottsville. And then Pottsville, which is named after my father's mother, Potts, her great grandfather was Potts and Potts Point, and that was his land grant. He was a surveyor for Governor Macquarie, and he done Potts Point, Pottsville, Potts Hill. Right, so it's all related to me biologically. And then from Pottsville, you can come back out to Mooball to the old Pacific Highway, or you go south of Pottsville. There's a town called Wooyong, Wooyung, Wooyung. And then go down that big, long, straight black road. You see backpackers sitting in the trees up there with their tents up, and they was camping in there because they just couldn't camp anywhere else because they couldn't camp out the Pacific Highway because it was so jam-packed full of backpackers everywhere from Wollumbar, the camping grounds, the old park area on that island between Chinder and Tumbulgum. There's just tents everywhere. So anyway, so the Australians, the Aussies then come up with a saying, say, "Oh, listen, backpacker, don't go camping underneath that tree out there." They didn't want to say, "Oh, it's going to be our camping ground." It's you've got to watch out for the drop bears, and of course they think, "Oh, a black bear in America or a koala bear, it's man eating." Right, because they hear the koala bear and it makes a big growl, right? But koala bears were around there then, but they're not there now. There's a bit of a thing, native thing about it anyway. But basically, the real meaning of drop bear come from, I'll tell you in a second. So we kept tormenting backpackers because I then started driving from 1983-86 from Sydney to Bundaberg in Queensland. So I'm down here in Sydney and I was driving up the Pacific Highway, right up the coast, right up here to Bundaberg. Right up here. Right, I can't look at the map, it's somewhere up there, right? And then I come all the way back down again. And I'll do that in a 7-day trip. And I was selling ironbark totems in nurseries. I think, what? An ironbark totem, what's that? Okay, well, we have a tree in Australia called the ironbark tree. As I said, Sydney was growing and they'll cut down all the trees, like out here from where I am. Used to be Australian bush. 10,000 houses out there. Well, those trees are gone. And at old Dick Boocham, he was about 66, I think, back then. He was born in 1910 or something. 1920 or whatever. He's in his 60s, full of arthritis. And he'd get out there and he'd use the back of an axe and he'd take the skin off the bark of these big long ironbark trees. And then we cut them up into little strips like this, or bigger ones, right up to 2 foot long. And then sometimes we had half an ironbark, which went around like that. And we put a plug of ironbark at the end of it, and people sit on their windows, flower pot dressings. That's right, flower pots. Because it's made out of ironbark wood, but it's actually ironbark. So therefore then the ironbark absorbed the moisture and kept the dirt moist, and therefore then didn't dry out. Because people were sick and tired of buying plastic. You want to see those old-fashioned plastic plant holders and the little green bars on them? Well, they got sick and tired of them. So we come up with selling ironbark. A little bit of wood sticking up was made out of ironbark and looked more natural. And then people would put them in their dirt and their ironbark surrounded pots. And of course, I made a fortune. I was making about $2,500, $3,000 a week in 1983, 84, 85, 86. So it's a lot of money. You think about it back then. Anyway, so I was going from Sydney to Bundaberg, dropping off all this ironbark because we had 15 miles one road. 15, or say about 50 square mile of trees, like a big 50 square mile block. And I just kept driving up and down the coast. I had them on the roof racks. I had them in the boot. I had them in the back seat of the car. I had them in a big car trailer on the back of the car trailer, which could tow it's like a big Ford Chevrolet in America, one of them, and it was stacked about 4 foot high, 5 foot high. And I had the big stuff around the outside, all the small stuff in the middle in bags, all that was in the middle. And I used to charge up there with the VC Valiant, 1967 model VC Valiant with the 225 Hemi. And anyway, so I'll be driving up the highway with the front passenger seat vacant, and it was a bench seat. And I remember one funny occasion I went through Coffs Harbour, and 2 guys were hitchhiking, and they were stuck north of Coffs Harbour on the old Pacific Highway. This is nearly 40 years ago, and pulled up and I said, how are we going to fit in? And I just laughed, you know, I just jokingly laughed. I was a 20-year-old, whatever it was, 22-year-old. I said, "Oh, she's right, mate. We'll show you." So I said, "Right, give us your backpacks." And they got their backpacks, and I threw them up in the back of the trailer, up over into the piles of piles of ironbark, and then they got in the 2 front seats of the car, because they said, "Well, we can't sit in the back, it's full of all that wood." I said, "It's not wood." I said, "It's ironbark." I said, "What's that?" And anyway, I then went on to explain it. So that's what I did. Anyway, they said, "Where are you going to?" So I'm going to Bundaberg. Anyway, they said, "Oh, what's this about drop bears?" And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, some bloke said he's going home to have a drop of the bear." Get it? Drop bear. So them being Canadian, American and English and German and French and Italian, and they hear this, you know, "I'm going home to have a drop of the bear." That's what the original expression was. And they think, "Oh, drop bear." So that's now where it's starting to come from. You see what I'm getting at. So that's starting to clear. That's where drop bear come from. No, what it is, it's Bundaberg rum. And why they say drop of the bear is because here is a Bundaberg rum, and there is a bear on it. It's a white polar bear. It's on Bundaberg rum. And when I got up to Bundaberg and I finished I finished driving, and I took up my last load of Bundaberg nurseries. There was 4 nurseries in Bundaberg, and I used to do gin, Childers, flower nurseries, because them days people used to like growing flowers, right? This is way before the internet, way before the freeways, way before the whatever, right? Everybody used to stay in the local areas. Nobody used to really travel. And a caravan would go up the road with a single axle and 2 skinny tyres on it, right? Those old-fashioned, you know, Chevrolet or whatever caravans, or Sunkisser or whatever they used to call themselves, right? So a lot of people used to, because the Pacific Highway used to wind around all the mountain ranges and all this, there was no freeway. There was no freeway from Brisbane to Sydney. It was just a long, narrow, single lane Sydney to Brisbane. So basically, there was a single lane all the way right up to Cairns in North Queensland. So a lot of Australians, even in Queensland, used to say, "I'll go home and I'm going to have a beer before I go to sleep." So drop beer, drop off to sleep. So you get it? So you drink your Bundaberg rum, you have a drink of the beer, you drink the beer, and you drop off to sleep. And that's where the name drop beer comes from. But of course, all the foreigners, Americans and Canadians and German and French and Italians and everybody else, thought it meant a drop beer out of the tree. No, it means you drink the beer and you drop off to sleep. So a lot of people got it wrong. Anyway, so I thought that'd be a quick one there for you. So if you want to buy Bundaberg rum, that's what it looks like. There is all different types. There's original, there's red, and there's what else is there? We call it sarsaparilla. You call it root beer and Bundy in America. That's an interesting one for you. So iRocker, if you want to send me an email, iRocker, if you get to watch this, it's mrhominoid@gmail.com. My name, like on the screen, Mr. Hominoid, one word, lowercase, @gmail.com. And we'll send you over some Bathurst stuff there, iRocker, or anybody else in America, or whoever wants this sort of stuff. It's all still sitting there. So nobody's answered my previous video. So I thought I'd do a drop beer one. Now, if you want a bottle of Bundy, you can order it online in America. So you can get it in America and England. My cousin Greg watches this. Hello, Greg. Hello, Crude on Beer. And Casey's Off-Road Recovery out of Utah. And who else got over there? Matt's Off-Road Recovery in Utah. And who else have got over there? Dreadpool 26 up there in Nebraska. And we've got Joshua Bartley, coin pusher up there in, what's he again? He's out of West Virginia. And Cowboy. West Virginia. Anyway, so that's it there for me, Mr. Hominoid Down Under. So if you want a Bundaberg rum or you want a map, no, you can buy your own Bundy. Want a sticker of Bathurst Raceway? It's on this coming weekend. Get ready for it. Or if you want a map of Bathurst, just so you can see the township and where the road is. Just a couple of them. Look, I'll just roll them up. I'll put an envelope and I'll post them over. Just send me an email, mrhominoid@gmail.com. That's it. And I'll post it over to you. All right, so for me, Mr. Hominoid Down Under, was a live chat. Now we've got to come on. It's 7 o'clock over here, so it's 7 o'clock in the morning over there, so nobody's probably on YouTube, so I don't care. And thank you, Crude on Bear. Crude on Bear actually sent me over my American flag. So I know she's always got my back, that Crude on Bear. Yeah, so God bless and take care of yourself and look after yourselves. So Mr. Hominoid@gmail.com. So want a Bathurst map or a Bathurst sticker or whatever, let me know. And I'll tell Mr. Dog. Oh, he gets Mr. Dog. Anyway, better go make Mr. Dog a sandwich. See you later. No, actually, likes Devon, actually.